So I do want to get more into the plugins and things like that a bit later, but one thing that is really important is in the early days, like back in the 2010s, where like it was still in that XBMC space, the like DVDs, things like that, were still a really popular medium to consume content. It sort of made sense how a home theater piece of software would actually make sense for like the legitimate use cases. I know you guys don't want to talk about the other ways that Kodi can be used, but what is the place of Kodi in a world where most of the content consumption is done through these streaming platforms like Disney Plus, like Netflix, like Crunchyroll, Hulu, and all of these other things that exist?
Yeah. So I think that we can play a large role there, right?
Mhm.
So for pure streaming user, one of the nice things about our platform is people have written third-party add-ons for essentially any type of streaming service that exists. You can see we've had folks write Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, tons and tons,
Mhm.
and the best part is that it's a consistent user experience across them that is themable, that is skinnable. Like you can choose kind of how that looks. There's been some inroads that people are trying to build the ability to do. There's varying levels of media importation scripts that exist as well, where you could essentially put a stub file inside of your library
Mhm.
that allows you to basically look like you have that piece of media. So you have that cover, you have all of that sitting
Mhm.
next to other media you might have as well. Another big aspect is we're probably the most extensive front end for DVR and PVR solutions out there that's open source.
Mhm.
So there's a ton of people. I myself have an HD home run in my house that I have a couple tuners. I think Brent does as well, right?
Yep, yep. So that was one of my first sort of things into the Kodi ecosystem was actually contributing to the PVR HD Home Run
Mhm.
binary add-on. So that was back in 2017. So yeah, things like that, being able to use that. And we had Silicon Dust were well, at the time, did have official Python plugins that they were contributing.
Mhm.
I don't believe they do anymore, but it's as I said, you can really work with a lot of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, so because those add-ons are open source, people have extended them and continued the life of that. But getting back to the streaming question,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's nice to have a consistent user experience. One of the main things, especially when you deal with people who maybe have low vision or things of that nature, it's the inconsistency across every platform. You
Right.
have to learn new UIs. I get annoyed sometimes with how bad some of these user interfaces are and how they handle scrolling and things like that. If I am at someone's house and I have to use different interfaces in order to pull up media.
Mhm.
And so it's really nice to come back to a Kodi environment where you have support for all of these streaming platforms, but you have them in the consistent way that you expect them to be.
Mhm.
And nobody, at times people can update it because of course these are all reverse engineered, but
Right.
by and large they tend to work. It usually works pretty well. And so that is one of the big experience things that if you really want to own and you care about the experience of playback and the look and feel of all of your media, this is probably the number one way people are able to kind of control that experience.
Right. Right. Well, even with these systems that like take like let's say Crunchyroll for example, their web interface is entirely different from like their PS5 interface, which is entirely different from their other interface, entirely different from another interface. So even just on a singular platform, there is going to be this complete mismatch of user design, and I can totally understand why a user, especially one who does have those accessibility issues, or someone who is more, someone who's elderly, who's not really like doesn't really have this deep understanding of how these systems sort of play together. I can totally understand why someone would want to have a system like this, or in that case you might have someone in your family who is more technical set up this system for you and give you a this simple thing to work